ARC 229. In this exercise we're going to create a house from an AutoCAD file. The first thing we're going to do is import the AutoCAD file. So I'm going to go to the M button at the top, import, and I'm going to import non-native file format into 3D Studio Max. So this is an import from another program. I'm going to navigate to my desktop, and I'm going to select a file called House Terrain. I'm going to click Open. This is where it loads the AutoCAD drawing into memory and then brings up a dialog box with several choices. There's only a couple things you need to do here. The most important is you want to derive AutoCAD primitives by entity. Derived AutoCAD primitives by entity. And in layers, you just need to ensure that they're all checked, meaning it's going to import every layer from AutoCAD. And then I'll click OK. If it's done correctly, every layer will come in as a different color, so your model, your 2D model, will have a bunch of line work in it. And that's what these all are. This is just line work that they're P-lines actually that have been created in the different view planes in AutoCAD. So I'm going to simplify our geometry a little bit, because the first thing we're going to do is we're going to extrude our walls. We're going to take our 2D plan for walls and raise them up. So I'm going to open up the Layer Manager, and then I'm going to make the P-line plan view active. That turns these, looks like sheets of papers, they represent layers. You want to turn that on and make sure that's the active layer, and then clicking the light bulbs off on the other views, you want to turn everything else off, because we're just going to be working with the P-line plan view layer. So the only thing you should see here now, I can close my Layer Manager for now, is the walls, the outlines of the walls, and then one what I call a reference line, which is that's going to tell us how high these walls need to be. The first thing I need to do is actually attach these objects so I can extrude them all at once. So all I need to do is select one of the lines, move to the Modify tab, and then down at the bottom you see here a button called Attach. So I'm going to select the Attach button. It will turn green, meaning it's ready to attach. And then when you pass your cursor over the other shapes, you'll see this sort of strange little circle line icon. So carefully go along and click each square to select all of the walls in your model. Now don't select this upright here, that's just a reference line. You just want to select all of the floor lines. Select all of those. That should all turn white now. And then I'm going to turn it off. And now what you see is these are all now attached, so they will all extrude at once when I add the extrude modifier. Now how high do we want to extrude our walls? Well, that's what this line is here for. This line was drawn in AutoCAD in one of the elevation views. This line represents the height of the walls. Now if I click on any object in 3D Studio Max and then right click on it with my right mouse button, it brings up what's called a quad menu, which is a set of choices. In this instance, I want to understand what the object properties are. So I right click, select Object Properties, and it tells us, among other things, that it is 8 feet, 3 and 16/64 of an inch. So that's how high we need to make our walls. This is sort of a funny dimension, so I'm going to write that down. So it's 8 feet, 3 and 16/64. So let's click OK. 8 feet, 3/16 and 64 of an inch. Now I will select my walls, move to the Modify tab, And I'm going to add the Extrude modifier. Now these turn blue, and by default it's set to 0 feet 0 inches. Now I could select the spinner, and I can click and drag in any direction to extrude these, but I want to actually extrude them to a specific height. So I will type in under the amount, I'll type in 8 feet 3 space 16 slash 64 quote, enter. And now it jumped to the exact height, 8 feet 3 and 16/64 of an inch. So that's a quarter of an inch, 8 feet 3 1/4 inches. Now we have our extruded walls. The next thing we need to do is create wall openings, window and door openings. So let's open up our layer manager, and then we're going to keep P-line plan view turned on. It's still going to be active. We won't make those active for now. We're actually going to turn on our windows and doors, and you see it creates these red shapes, which are the window and door openings. We're going to make that active for now. And then we're also going to turn on something called plan view. And for now, turn off P-line plan view. So the two things that are visible are plan view, which is the actual plan view with you see the door swings here of the house, and the windows and doors layer that shows the window and door openings. That one's active by selecting the active layer. And what I need to do first is I want to extrude all of these. So I could select them all in another view, like for example I could click to this view, and I could, if I click this to window crossing and just pass my cursor around all of these, it will select them all. And I can move to the Modify tab. You see here it says 20 shapes selected. And if I drop down and add Extrude modifier to all of them, it extrudes all of these shapes to 8, 3, and 16/64 of an inch. Now we don't want to have it be that big. These are the openings for the windows. So let's just make them a foot. So select the amount, just type in 1 and quote, hit enter, and oh, that's 1 inch. Nope, you want to make sure it's 1 and then a single quote. Now they're a foot, and you'll see why a foot is a good measurement in a moment. Click out anywhere, so now I can select all these individually. I'm going to move to the top view here. So I select my top view, the yellow line indicates that it's selected, and then I'm going to select the Maximize Viewport toggle. What I want to make sure is that all of these windows straddle the opening of the plan view. So the front and the back side, it needs to be penetrating both to create an opening. See, right here, this is not good because it's right up against the front of the wall. So we actually want to select this and move it. Now you can, with the Control key down, select multiple. You see how there's a little plus cursor. So I've got my Control key selected. I'm selecting multiple in this direction, and now I can move those all at once. Some of them that won't work, like this one, I'll need to move manually. It's just eyeballing it. I just want to make sure that these boxes are larger than the openings. Control key down, select these two, move them out. We'll go in this view, move them so they cross front and back, and then these here I'll just have to do them one at a time. There we go. That one is done. Those are all done. All we have now to do are this last bit here. Select window around the outside of all of them, and then drag them so they penetrate the front and the back side. Now if we go back to our 4-window view, you'll see here they're still kind of floating. So let's now open up our layer manager, we're again going to turn on our P-line plan view because those are our walls. Let's make our wall layer active by clicking on the active layer. So now the P-line plan view is active, meaning any geometry that's created will land in that layer. We can turn off plan view. We don't need it anymore. We just needed it to place the window opening. So turn that off, you see the yellow disappears. And now we just have these two layers, the P-line plan view and the separate windows. Close my layer manager for the moment. I'm going to maximize this viewport. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create a compound object. We're going to remove these openings from this wall. So I select my walls, move to the Create tab, and from the Geometry button, this drop down, I will select from this drop down Compound Objects from this drop down. Create button, Create tab, Geometry button, Compound Objects from the drop down, and then a button called Pro Boolean. Select that. It turns green, meaning it's ready for commands. By default, it says subtraction, which means this object will be subtracted from this object. So I'm going to then select the Start Picking button, and now I'm going to carefully go along and click on my red windows, and they will be subtracted from my walls and create openings. So I have to do that very carefully and deliberately. You'll want to save your work before doing this, and again after doing it successfully, because sometimes this doesn't work all that well and you need to redo it. And you can only do this operation once without restarting the file. So now I have gone around, turn off the button, and now you see that I have created all of the openings for my walls. As a next step, I'm going to create the windows and doors.